What's up, everybody? This is Go Element Autoworks. Like, share, and subscribe, please. I want to make a quick video about a broken lug bolt in a rear hub of a Mercedes. I was under the impression that a broken bolt would be attached to the rear rotor. I was hoping that the rear rotor itself was threaded, but I don't know why I thought that. But of course, I was in for a surprise when I removed the rear rotor and saw that what is threaded is behind the rotor. It's the hub. Now, that's okay. This is the one that was broken off. Let me show you the bolt itself. It was this one. This bolt has snapped off. More than likely, it went in crooked and it broke off. I know exactly what happened once I looked at the wheel and the center hub of the wheel, which is 74.1, and the hub of a Mercedes is 66.56. Oftentimes it just says 66.6. So what happens without a rear Hubcentric ring to equal the diameter of the aftermarket wheel, you'll have to center it with the lug nuts or with the lug bolts. Mercedes has lug bolts, not lug nuts, lug bolts. So when you try to center it with this, it's a lot of tension. Easy to go in crooked because you have to perfectly center that wheel and tighten in a star pattern. Most of the time, people will crank it down with a, what's that called? They use a compressor and they use a, what is that called? What is that called again? What is that drill called? That's called a torque wrench. Or no, not a torque wrench, a impact. Daggone it, I couldn't think about it. It's called an impact. And oftentimes they will crank it down to get it started to hold the wheel in place so that they can put the other lug bolts in. That's the wrong thing to do with a Mercedes. Do not do that. Do not use an impact in order to drill this thing in. If you're going to do that, just get it so that the lug bolt actually attaches to the hub. Don't start cranking it down. Just do it so that you got a couple threads in there. That's it. You still have to do them in a star pattern equally, evenly, right? You can't crank them down. Don't do that. So again, this situation exists because they didn't have a Hubcentric ring. You have a larger hub on the wheel itself, which is a 74.1 going onto a 66.56. You have to have that ring on there. If you don't, you will have balance issues and other issues. The problem with that is if you go too long with a unbalanced wheel, it causes further damage to your diff assembly, to your axles. It will throw codes. It'll be a horrible ride. You don't want to risk damaging a differential or any other component on a Mercedes in particular. The risk also is that the bolts will back out and the wheel will fly off. So you don't want to do that. Make sure if you're putting aftermarket wheels onto these cars, make sure that you're using either Hubcentric rings or you're buying a wheel where the center board is the same diameter as the car that is going on. All right. So how did I remove that lug bolt that had broken off inside? Well, I use a little engineering and imagination to make it work. Okay, so I obviously already removed it, and this is it right here. Now, why does it have a straight like trench or cut in it? Like, let me see if I can zoom out. There you go. Why does it have that? Well, duh, I put it in there. So you see here, if you look at the actual hub, I didn't go in deep. You see the threads are still good. Where is it at? All right, the threads are still good. I didn't go in excessively deep. Just enough to cut into the broken off threaded part of the bolt, enough to dig a flathead screwdriver into it and to turn it. Now you would say, how in the heck did you use a flathead screwdriver with enough torque or strength or leverage to pull this out? Well, I used this type of flathead screwdriver that has this square design that allows me to use this adjustable wrench as close to the tip as possible. That still allows you to get a good grip. And this was enough leverage to start turning it. So when you're cutting it, of course, I use this right here just to get the cut. Take your time. It will be a lot of sparks. This is heat treated steel. It's very hard. So you take your time, you cut a nice straight line. Be careful. You're going to pull out and go back in a couple times till you get enough depth to get that screwdriver in there to get enough grip to turn this broken thread out, broken section, portion of this bolt. All right, so you got to get it in there. Like I said, make sure that you go deep enough, but you don't ruin that hub, because you still need the hub. You know, like I said, I thought that right there was threaded, the rotor, but it's not. I don't know if I'm thinking about GMs, or I don't know what I'm thinking about. Am I thinking about the front? I don't know what I'm thinking about, but I thought that was threaded, but it's not. So I also have an issue here with the e-brake. You press the e-brake, it tells you that there's an e-brake fault. Now, if I look at these e-brakes, something looks a little funky. That right there looks a little wonky. Something's wrong there. That's broke, that's bent, there's some damage here. And also, this might be worn out. I don't know. I gotta look at some new ones and see what the difference is. You get my finger in the way. You see that? My bad. All right, so I gotta figure out also what's going on. I have to check the other side as well and see, is that damaged to the e-brake, the actual pads back here? And if so, that needs to be replaced. But there's something going on with the e-brake. Hopefully it's not the cable itself, but that e-brake right now is inoperable. So I'll figure that part out later. But like I said, take my advice. Use Hubcentric rings, or use wheels that are already bored to fit perfectly onto your vehicle. Now the 66.56 is the common, well, it is the bore size front and back on Mercedes, Volkswagens, Audis, and that's all I can think of right now. Anything else that has a 5x112, you know, bolt pattern typically has. You know what? I could be wrong there too. You know what? I know Mercedes. Let me stop talking about Volkswagens and Audi, because I don't know. I think Audis do, but let me just stick to what I know, and that's Mercedes. And yes, 66.6 or 66.56. So know what kind of wheel you're putting on there. If you need Hubcentric rings, buy them. Do you know what Hubcentric rings look like? I might have some hanging up. Let me go see. Hold on. All right, so here goes the plastic Hubcentric rings. So the inner bore is 66.56 and the outer is 74.1 on these. 74.1 is a common size, unlike most Hondas, most Japanese vehicles. Let's see, here goes some metal ones. The advantage of the metal ones are they go on there and they don't ever change. They're metal, right? They usually fit so tight that you have to kind of pry them out. The plastic ones are more flexible. They give a little bit. So they're easy to remove. Sometimes they will crack if they've been on there for a long time. But if you want the perfect one, go with the metal ones. There's no flex, obviously, with metal. So you got to keep stuff like that, man, around, especially when you buy a lot of wheels. Obviously, if you own a lot of Mercedes or any kind of car that you deal with, just be prepared, worst case scenario, for adapters when you come across situations like this. Now, this car has a whole lot of wobble in the rear, and I'm sure that played a part, but I'm wondering if it also caused damage beyond just, what's obvious. Also, make sure you always have 5 bolts or 5 lug nuts holding your wheel on. Whenever you do 4, this is of course on a 5 bolt pattern wheel, hub, whatever. If it requires 4, like a lot of those older Hondas, smaller cars, whatever, that's something different. But if it requires 5, make sure you have 5. And if you can't put 5 in there, get 5 in there as soon as possible, because the wheel is very difficult to balance out. It's not made to have 4, it's made to have 5. That makes sure that the compression, when you crank it down, is even, right, across the wheel and across the hub. All right, so don't just bootleg it and go with 4. If you can do 5, do 5. All right, 4 is scary. It's not secure. You don't want to do that. You're risking your life. You're risking the safety of others on the road. You don't want to do that. Make sure if it's made for 5, 5. All right. All right. That's it for today. Let me go ahead and check the passenger side, or driver's side rather, and just see what I'm gonna come across there. Hopefully it's not as bad. And then I gotta check the diff, and I gotta check the fluids, and I gotta check the axles and all that kind of drive shaft, all that. Blah. Whole lot of work, but it's worth it. Peace out.